I've read the comments. I've gotten the text messages. I know that Mets fans want Skubal or Skenes, but are either the best pitchers on the planet, even on the block, to get traded?
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. I've been covering the New York Mets on this show since the 2019 season. This is the #1 daily podcast on the New York Mets. If you want to find any of my written work, you can do so over at justbaseball.com, where I work as the editor-in-chief. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. If your bet wins, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download FanDuel today. So I have been getting a lot of text messages on our Locked On Mets Insider line. I've seen comments on the YouTube channel, and I've seen some articles written now from some outlets talking about what the Mets might do this offseason, and particularly, could they swing a big trade for Tarik Skubal? That's the bigger name that makes more sense. But I've seen a lot of fans who will read that article and comment under it, I want Paul Skenes. I've gotten the text messages of I want Skenes for actually some time now. There's a couple of very persistent texters that are always just putting right out there that Skenes is going to be a Met. And it's going to happen now. So I wanted to take a second, take a show to just talk through the likelihood or unlikelihood that these guys could get traded. But before we do that, let's just get to the main thing about these guys, which is that they are the two best pitchers on the planet right now. And I actually don't think that there is a close third. I think if you wanted to get through the weeds on that, you got a Christopher Sanchez who's been very good for the Phillies. You got Garrett Crochet, who had an amazing season. Chris Sale has been very good over the last couple of years. There's a lot of guys out there that are still really good pitchers. But this is, I think, the greatest separation in the last 5 years, I would say, of two guys that have created a tier of themselves, where they are at this level that can't be touched over the past two seasons. And if Paul Skenes had broken camp in 2024, I think we'd be talking about two back-to-back Cy Young winners in each league. I really think so. But he did not start with the Pirates on opening day last year. And so because of that, Chris Sale took the 2024 Cy Young from him. But in 2025, Paul Skenes will win the Cy Young, and Tarik Skubal will win his second straight Cy Young. You look at the stats over the last two seasons. Paul Skenes has made 55 starts. He has a 21-13 record on a terrible Pirates team. A little bit of Jacob deGrom in him when it comes to that. Across those 55 starts, Skenes has pitched to a career 1.96 ERA. When it comes to strikeout per nine, he's at 10.83, which anything in double digits is outstanding. Walks per nine, if you're under 3, again, outstanding. He's at 2.08. And when it comes to home runs per nine, a minuscule 0.59. No one has been better at limiting the home run ball than Skenes. Only Chris Sale has a lower FIP over the past two seasons than Skenes. FIP is fielding independent pitching, so it removes defense. And for Skenes, a 2.40 FIP, second best in baseball to Sale at 2.33. His ERA leads baseball, obviously, at 1.96. His expected ERA of 2.56 leads baseball. He's been sensational to start his big league career, and yet in some ways, Tarik Skubal has still been better. Skubal over the past two seasons, a 2.30 ERA in 387 and a third innings pitched. He's 31-10. He leads Major League Baseball in wins above replacement, according to FanGraphs, at 12.6. That's 1.5 wins better than Christopher Sanchez, who checks in at number 2 at 11.1, just ahead of Skenes, who's third at 10.8, and about 50 less innings than Sanchez. Only Logan Webb has thrown more innings than Skubal, and nobody has a lower whip than Skubal, whip being walks and hits over innings pitched. If you're under 1, typically it's because you're a closer, but for Skubal, he's under 1 as a starting pitcher, a 0.91 whip over the past two seasons. Now, the Tigers just got eliminated from the playoffs in the ALDS after that incredible, was a 15-inning game. It was unbelievable to watch. Skubal started that game. Finished off a postseason where he pitched to a 1.74 ERA across 3 starts. In the wild card round, he went 7 2/3 against the Guardians, struck out 14, allowed just 1 run. Game 2 of the ALDS, he allowed 2 runs on a pair of solo homers by Jorge Polanco. Polanco is really raising his free agent stock this October. He continues to be just the clutchest hitter on the Mariners. Couple big hits in game 1 of the ALCS last night, as you guys are listening to this on a Monday morning. But getting back to Skubal, in that game 2 performance, he walked 1, struck out 9. That was over 7 innings pitched. Then, winner take all game 5, Skubal allows 1 run on 2 hits, walked none, struck out 13. And after he gave up that lone run, which came on a double by Josh Naylor, Naylor then stole third and scored on a sac fly. After that, he got pissed off and struck 7 Mariners out in a row and finished off his day striking out 10 of the final 13 batters that he faced. Tarik Skubal is unbelievable. And he's entering his age 29 season. And because it's his walk year, people are starting to wonder if the Tigers are going to consider shopping Skubal. Because if he hits free agency and you lose him for just a qualifying offer, isn't that malpractice? Don't they, in some ways, have to consider trading Tarik Skubal? Is that where the Tigers are going to go this offseason? That's what we're talking about next. If Skubal will be traded, if he is, what's it going to take to get him? Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season's here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets. That's right. You pick a bet, you put down $5, and if it hits, you're going to unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet, whether it's player props, building a same-game parlay, even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes watching football even more exciting. You got a little extra something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or you love diving into the stats, FanDuel is going to make the game day experience so much better. It's quick, it's easy. It's the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays. So if you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. If you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. Help us get closer to our next goal of 15,000 subscribers. We're now within 300 subscribers away from getting to that goal. I really do appreciate all of you who continue to subscribe. All right, so before we talk about what the Tigers do with Skubal, let's just start with the trade package, right? What is the cost for 1 year of Tarik Skubal? I've seen some mocks already. Hey, let's get Skubal by trading Jonah Tong. And let's maybe make Jacob Reimer the next prospect. Let's send Mark Vientos over. Let's send, who else can we send without sending the guys that we want to keep? You have to get real, okay? If you're going to get the best pitcher on the planet, you got to give your best pitching prospect. So if I see a mock trade that has the Mets landing Tarik Skubal without giving up Nolan McLean, I don't know if it's very accurate. Now, maybe theoretically, if he really was on the market, and the Tigers love them some Jonah Tong. Sure. But when Jonah Tong comes up to the big leagues, whether rushed or not, and in his first 5 starts pitches to an ERA over 7, how are the Tigers fans going to take that as the headlining piece for Skubal, regardless of the 1.4, whatever the ERA was for Jonah Tong in the minor leagues? Now, he was the most dominant pitcher in minor league baseball this year. Doesn't matter. What Tigers fans see, MLB ERA. So if you really want to get into the door to get Skubal, Nolan McLean is your entry fee. And you have Nolan McLean for the next 6 years. Right there, I see a sticking point in getting a deal done. But let's just play out the conversation. Best pitcher on the planet. Back-to-back Cy Young getting traded, which does not happen. What's it going to take to get him? Nolan McLean and one of Jet Williams or Carson Bench probably has to be the headliner in the deal. And then maybe it's a couple of other top prospects that aren't top 100 guys. Maybe you can get away with a Jack Wenninger or a AJ Ewing. But even then, I don't know if that's going to move the needle for the Tigers. It's so hard to try to properly contextualize trade value for guys this good because guys this good just really don't get traded that often. I mean, yes, Corbin Burns got traded, but Corbin Burns wasn't even on Skubal's level. And granted, when he got traded, I mean, if you're trying to go to apples, then maybe you could say that Nolan McLean is too much, right? If you wanted to compare it to the Burns package. But at the same time, I just, knowing the importance of Skubal to that franchise, I just don't know how they could possibly sell it to their fan base after 2 playoff runs. What are you saying if you trade Tarik Skubal? What is the signal to the fan base? A fan base that is finally fired up on Tiger baseball for the first time in a decade. You're saying you're starting over. And now, look, they do have some top prospects in AA that you can get excited to start over with. They have the top prospect in baseball, depending on the outlet you check with, at Just Baseball where I work. Kevin McGonigal is our top prospect in the game. He's a shortstop prospect who, across 3 levels, mostly high A and AA. I think it was just 6 games. My guess, on injury rehab at some point that he played in low A. But McGonigal hit 305, 408 on base, 583 slug this past season, a 991 OPS, and he's a good shortstop. So that's their shortstop of the future. Apologies to Javi Baez. Maybe he'll play some center field or second base. Who knows? Max Clark could be their center field of the future, though. He had an 835 OPS between high A and AA. And then they have Jose Briseño, who has crazy pop, 20 home runs at 100 games for him. Those 3 guys, they have been taking together on their minor league journey. They've been promoting them at the same time, so they've all gotten a chance to play together, and they were on a very good AA team this past year. I believe, did they end up facing off against their own opponent? I think they might have faced off against their own ponies in that championship, but regardless, they got some really good prospects that can boost that lineup. But they don't have any pitching prospects to replace Tarik Skubal. The guy that would have been the replacement from their farm is Jackson Jobe, but Jackson Jobe got TJ in June. So they're not going to see him again until 2027. And I just don't know how you sell to this fan base. After 2 playoff runs, we're going to take a year off and wait for Jobe, and we're going to reset the farm by trading Skubal right now. It just doesn't add up for me that they're going to actually do it. If anything, this is the most obvious case ever of a team that needs to just throw caution to the wind, find out what Skubal's price is, and extend him tomorrow. That's what the Tigers need to do. That if I'm their GM, who's their GM? Scott Harris, I think, is their GM. But I think at one point was up for a Mets job. Or maybe I'm thinking of the Brewers GM. What's the guy's name? Was it Matt Arnold? Regardless, it doesn't matter. If I am Scott Harris for the Tigers, and I'm setting my offseason task list, task 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 is extend Tarik Skubal. That's what you have to do because he got nothing waiting when it comes to your pitching prospects. But if you extend Skubal and Skubal can maintain this, well, now you have the bedrock of your rotation where now you can go out and you can pluck your Jack Flaherty's in free agency and hope that he has a good year. You can see Casey Mize, who's their second best pitcher this past season. He's going to be a free agent in 2027. They don't have any other internal options. So I really think that Skubal gets extended way more than I think he gets traded. And if he doesn't get extended, if the cost is too much, you still don't give up hope that you can meet that cost, whatever it is, once he gets to free agency, knowing that you will get some type of qualifying offer compensation, but even more so, you run into the season with Skubal, you see what it looks like for the first 4 months, basically. And if you're not going to make the playoffs and it's a down year, then at that point in time, when you only have 2 months left of control, then you trade Skubal for probably the exact same cost or exact same prospect return as you're going to get right now. Skubal, the only risk there is Skubal getting hurt, but if Skubal gets hurt, he probably stays with you to rehab anyway. And you kick the can down the road. I don't know. I see the narrative shifting towards Skubal right now and in the offseason and how he could get traded. And I just don't buy it personally. I think it's a different situation than Freddie Peralta, who we will talk about on a show where we break down all the real trade candidates in my eyes. Freddie Peralta is different because the Brewers have Jacob Mizorowski. They have Chad Patrick, who had a good rookie season. And they do the churn and burn a little more often, and they do it successfully. They can sell to their fan base that they're trading Freddie Peralta on the last year of team control because they've already traded Corbin Burns and haven't skipped a beat. And so for them, they can do it because they are on a steady foundation. This is one of the most winning teams in baseball over the past, whatever it's been, since David Stearns took over the Brewers. They've been a consistent winner. The Tigers, this is a somewhat overnight success the last 2 years. It really was, September of 2024, where they were amazing. They rode that momentum into 2025, were a great team in the first half, kind of similar to the Mets. They fell off, but were able to hang on and still make the playoffs as a wild card team. And then they won a round and they advanced. And then they pushed the Mariners to the brink. And the Mariners very well could be the team that represents the American League in the World Series after going up 1-0 on the Blue Jays last night. So for where the Tigers are at and the importance of Tarik Skubal, who it really feels like they take their identity from him. He is the leader atop that rotation. I mentioned the record for him, and I mentioned it for Skenes too, but I really just wanted to mention records for these guys because of that 31-10 record that Tarik Skubal has had. I mean, I even wonder, I'm going to look real quick here. Let me see. I'm going to go to Baseball Reference and look at their record in games that Tarik Skubal has pitched over the past 2 seasons, because I'm sure it's insane. I mean, they're probably a 500 team or worse without Skubal. I don't know. To me, it just doesn't necessarily add up. Let me go. I'm pulling it up real quick here. So they were 21-10 in 2024 when Skubal took the mound. 21-10. And let's see what they were this year when he took the mound. This year, they were, talking about consistency, 21-10. So they were 42-20 when Tarik Skubal pitched for them over the past 2 seasons. 42-20. So over 62 games, that is a 677 winning percentage. When Skubal's on the mound, they're a 110 win team. I don't think they're that great when he's not on the mound. So I just don't think he's getting traded. But will Paul Skenes get traded? That's where we're going to close the show here in just a minute. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's their 401k, properties, or investments. When you don't have a full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that's going to bring your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you, where you can link all of your accounts in minutes, so see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I linked all my accounts to Monarch, and immediately I spotted a few subscriptions I didn't even know I had. I started to realize, I spent a little too much money on takeout, and I was able to clean some things up. Don't let this financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONMLB. If you're an everydayer that always tunes into the show, make sure you become a Locked On Mets insider. This is our texting service where you can ask me questions anytime, or you can text me why the Mets should trade for Paul Skenes whenever you want to, and where I will, again, answer your questions and update you on any news. It's also where we do our Locked On Mets sign photo giveaways. If you want to be Locked On Mets insider, find a link in the episode description or go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. Let's talk about Paul Skenes now. He's not going to be a free agent until 2030. That's 4 years of team control. He's only 23 years old. He'll turn 24 at the end of May next year. And he still is not going to hit arbitration yet. So he is going to make less than $1 million next season, making him the biggest bargain, in my view, in all sports when you figure how much money he generates the Pirates as the face of the Pirates who, sells out that ballpark whenever he's on the mound. Now, before I poke holes in the idea of why the Pirates would trade Skenes, let's try to compute prospect value, shall we? Garrett Crochet was traded last offseason. Now, he netted the White Sox 4 prospects. 2 of them were top 100 guys, and altogether it was 4 top 15 prospects in the Red Sox system. The headliner, Kyle Teel, a catcher, who actually had a very good rookie season for the White Sox, and then outfielder Braden Montgomery, who was also a top 100 guy. Now, remember, at the time, Garrett Crochet was coming off that breakout 2024 season, his first year in the big leagues as a starting pitcher, where he pitched to a 3.58 ERA and 146 innings pitched. But if you remember, he was unbelievable in the first half and then sort of faded down the stretch. Struggled a little bit. They also really started to curtail his innings as they were clearly trying to protect the trade asset. And ultimately, there was still some doubt about what he would be going into the season. Now, in retrospect, obviously more teams should have been. And Crochet, I did a whole show why the Mets probably could have or maybe should have traded for Crochet in retrospect, but also we went through the whole context of why at the time it didn't make sense for the Mets because of some of the concerns, some of the other things. You see the results, obviously. I mean, Crochet is the reason the Red Sox became a playoff team again. That's how good he was. But at the time of the trade, you were not sure you were going to get that level of production. You also weren't guaranteed that he was going to sign an extension. So there was really 2 years of team control left for a guy that had ace potential and also a young pitcher. I think at the time he was 25 years old. But Skenes is better than Crochet was. And even now he's better than Crochet. But now that margin's a lot thinner than it would have been considered a year ago. Skenes, again, 1.96 career ERA, 8 months from his 24th birthday. Also the most marketable pitcher in baseball not named Shohei Ohtani. Crochet got 4 top 15 prospects, 2 top 100 guys. So, and that was 2 years of control. So for 4 years of Skenes, what do you double that package? So is it 4 top 100 guys and 8 of your top 15 prospects? Even then, that might not fully compute the value because I would argue that Skenes is more than double valuable what Crochet was a year ago because he's a better pitcher and a more marketable pitcher, which means when you trade for him, he is going to result in a bigger spike in your revenue, which is actually something that teams do factor into these things to some degree. According to Just Baseball, where I write, the Mets have 6 top 100 prospects right now. Carson Bench, Jet Williams, Nolan McLean, Jonah Tong, Jacob Reimer, and Brandon Sproat. And I think there's other outlets that might consider Ryan Clifford a top 100 prospect. There might be some that consider AJ Reimer AJ Reimer. I combined Jacob Reimer and AJ Ewing in my notes. AJ Ewing, a top 100 prospect. Elian Pena could certainly become a top 100 prospect when he comes stateside. Had a great first season in the Dominican Summer League, and he's the guy the Mets spent $5 million on his signing bonus. All that is to say, the Mets have the capital to pull off any trade in theory. So for Skenes, here's my package of prospects. 4 top 100 guys. I still think you got to give up your best pitching prospect and your best hitting prospect for a guy like Paul Skenes. So Benj, McLean, gone. Jonah Tong, maybe still gone. Or maybe it's Brandon Sproat, whatever. Jacob Reimer, throw him in there. That's 4 top 100 guys. Add in a Clifford. Maybe you add in a Ewing as well. It's funny. I wrote Reimer in my notes again, too, probably because I looked up at the AJ Ewing. It's funny. But again, Clifford, Ewing, Benj, McLean, Tong, Reimer, Jacob Reimer, that is. Throw in Jonathan Santucci. And we'll say RJ Gordon. I had Jack Leninger. We're going to lower it down to RJ Gordon, whatever. That's 8 prospects. It might be fair prospect value for Skenes, and you might be saying, oh, we'll send it in, whatever. It's Paul Skenes. The Mets wouldn't do that because you can't trade that much prospect capital in one deal. It's going to cripple your farm and potentially your future. You do that, Paul Skenes needs TJ, you are bleeped. So it doesn't make sense for the Mets to meet that level of a package, but it doesn't make sense for the Pirates to trade him for anything less right now because guess what? If you want the Crochet package, in 2 years, you can get better than actually the Crochet package because it's Paul Skenes. So in 2 years, you can still get 2 to maybe even 3 top 100 prospects for Paul Skenes in 2 years. And in those 2 years that you have him, he'll probably win 2 more Cy Youngs. He'll make you a boatload of money. Your season ticket sales won't be in the toilet. And if you sneak into the wild card, which your division rival, the Reds, just showed you can happen, Paul Skenes can win you a wild card game, and then you are another win away from being on a playoff run where Skenes can do what Skubal just did and pitch 2 times in a 5-game series. Win those games, now you're in the ALCS. Maybe you can pitch 2 more times. You never know what can happen, or the NLCS. You never know what can happen. You really don't. Paul Skenes can lead the Pirates to the World Series if you get him into the dance. It's not likely. But if you are running the team and trying to build a winner, you're not going to give up on that possibility just to be the guy that traded Paul Skenes with 4 years left to control. And so the entire city of Pittsburgh hates your guts. It's like trading Luka Doncic. I don't know if anybody wants to be the guy that trades Paul Skenes because, again, you are instantly hated. And for the owner, does he want to trade the guy that's going to make him a ton of money the next 2 years on the cheap, even if Paul Skenes gets to $10 million in his first year of ARB? $11 million for the next 2 years for Paul Skenes. I mean, he's going to 10x that money. I don't even know exactly, but it's a huge, huge windfall that you're just giving up so that you can get a team to maybe trade it for 75 cents on the dollar of his value because no one can afford to give up 8 of their top 15 prospects. It just doesn't make sense. You can't do it. So it has to be, okay, like what would the Mets actually want to trade? Yeah, they would trade McLean and Sproat. They'd probably do that. And yeah, maybe they trade Benj, but they wouldn't want to trade Benj and Jet Williams. They wouldn't want to go to the degree of giving up all their future young talent because your team just gets way too expensive. And you have to then build through free agency every single year, which is exactly what the Mets have been trying to get away from. They want to have a farm system that's good enough so that, yes, when the time comes and Freddie Peralta is on the market, you can trade instead of having to trade Nolan McLean or Jonah Tong or Brandon Sproat. For Freddie Peralta, maybe you can get away with trading, Ryan Clifford and Jack Wenninger as the 2 big prospects with some more on top. We'll do that on probably tomorrow's show. I think I want to break down really the top realistic trade targets on the market. And, maybe we'll talk about packages, and then you can maybe match the Burns package. I think with Skubal, it's where the Tigers are that doesn't make sense to trade a guy like that because of how good he has been and how much they need him. With Skenes, it's just a kind of a math problem. You cannot equate the value that the Pirates need to get to make that trade right now when they know that they have all the time in the world to make that trade. The earliest they'd even consider it is at the deadline this year if they're again going nowhere. And even with that, they probably still don't do it because they can trade him in the offseason and let him win back-to-back Cy Youngs in a Pirates uniform. They could trade him at the deadline next year, in 2027, and still get an incredible King's ransom. They can trade him in the offseason going into 2028, or they can even wait until trade deadline of 2028 if they're still going nowhere as a franchise and get absurd value for him. Guys this good don't get traded. Because of Skubal's, pending free agency, I will not say that it's impossible he gets traded this offseason. I'll say it's very unlikely in my eyes that he actually gets moved. Paul Skenes, 0% chance he gets traded. And I'd even venture to say he won't get traded until arbitration and probably not until his first trade deadline as a player that's making real money in arbitration. I think the conversation starts for Skenes trade deadline of 2027 if the Pirates have not done any winning before then. Then I think, okay. And sure, the clock is ticking for them to start winning, but they're not trading Skenes. Just don't see it. I really don't see it. I don't see Skubal getting moved either. But on tomorrow's show, we're going to talk about pitchers who actually could be on the trade market this offseason, Freddie Peralta being one of them, and we'll go through some other names that make some sense, and maybe we'll get into a little bit of the trade packages and things of that nature that could get you those types of arms. But for now, that's going to be all for this edition of Locked On Mets. Really do appreciate all of you who tuned into the show. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. You want to be a Locked On Mets insider and be part of our texting service? You can find the link in the episode description. Go to subtext.com/Locked On Mets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen, your first watch every day. Now for your second watch, check out Locked On Sports Today, the first ever 24/7 streaming channel that covers everything. The world of sports, or the local experts from each team, legal experts from each league. Find Locked On Sports Today, streaming 24/7 on YouTube.